What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. Alright, so we are going to continue our coverage over the fall of the mutants. As a matter of fact, this is going to be our last video for this era of X-Men comics. Because remember, when it came to fall of the mutants, it wasn't really a proper crossover. You didn't have all the different X-Men teams crossing over in each other's books. Instead, each X-Men team had to face their own certain kinds of problems. So when it came to X-Factor, they had to deal with Apocalypse. When it came to the X-Men, well, they had to deal with Adversary. But when it came to the New Mutants, well, they're going to have their own particular problem. Now, when it came to the fall of the mutants, every single storyline ended on a good note, with X-Factor getting a lot of love for defeating Apocalypse, the X-Men having the ability to now hide in the shadows. But when it comes to the New Mutants, the idea of the fall of the mutants really hit this title really hard, because by the end of the storyline, one of their team members is going to die. Now, the last time we saw our heroes, well, they met a new character known as Bird Boy. Now, when it came to Bird Boy, at first, we were left to believe if he was actually a mutant or a human, to only find out that he's only half human, half animal. We also learned that he came from an island, and on this secret island there is a laboratory where there was him and other kind of creatures being tested on left and right, day in and day out. And a lot of times they were tortured in that laboratory. And so when it came to our heroes, once they had learned that Bird Boy had other friends who were just like him, half human, half animal, they agreed to help him free his friends who are still being held on that island. Except when they had arrived on that island, well, they were surrounded by different kind of creatures that had lived on that island, but unfortunately, they don't know that they are surrounded. They don't know they are being watched. And so while you have our heroes walking around the island, well, that is when we come to find out who the island belongs to, a character known as the Animator. Now, when it comes to this character, he's also the one who had created these half animal, half human creatures. But the way he acts towards them, you can tell he only looks at them as slaves to help him accomplish different kinds of tasks or different kinds of experiments. But when it comes to him, we also learn that he is working for the right. Now remember, the right is a group of humans that had came together and being led by a character known as Cameron Hodge, and their main goal is to get rid of the mutant race. And so it seems he was hired to help them achieve that goal, except we have no idea how yet, or what is his game plan to help out the right to achieve that goal. Now, when it comes to the Animator, even though he does work for the right, his main goal is to finish his experiments. But he's also intrigued to learn why in the world the New Mutants are on his island. But getting back over to our heroes, as they are walking around the island, they are then confronted by more creatures who are very similar to Bird Boy. And when it came to Bird Boy, when he was able to escape, he gave them hope in the idea that they will also find ways to escape. Except with him coming back here and bringing humans, they are beginning to hate him. And the only reason why, because of them, the only human they know is the doctor who has been torturing them day in and day out. And so even though Bird Boy came back with help, they look like humans. And they believe that these humans are also there to torture them as well. Except you didn't have our heroes try their best to explain that no, they're on their side. They want to help these creatures escape this island and have a somewhat normal life. But we have to jump back over to the school of Charles Xavier, where we do pick up with Sunspot and Warlock coming back to the school. Now, there was a period of time these two characters actually left the team and kind of formed a different team in their own separate book, but of course came back when that series had wrapped up. Now, as soon as they arrived, they set off all the alarms at the school because it's nighttime, and so they were confronted by Magneto. Now, once you have Magneto realize it's just Sunspot and Warlock and they're coming back home, he's very happy. But then he realized the rest of the team did not wake up when the alarms went off, which means they're not at the school. But getting back over to our heroes, while they are talking to Bird Boy and other creatures who are just like him, well, then the alarms go off. Now, these alarms are technically being used to put these creatures in some kind of trance, to make them go through something known as the maze. If they are able to accomplish the maze, 1, they'll get the chance to live. 2, they'll get food. And 3, they'll get their own kind of promotion into another group of creatures. But again, as soon as those alarms go off, every single creature in the area begins to enter the maze. And you have our heroes go alongside with Bird Boy, who is also in a trance. But their goal is to hopefully accomplish the maze, find the leader of the island, and stop that person and free the creatures. But while they're going through the maze, they see how hard it is, but also they're finding dead bodies of other creatures who are very similar to Bird Boy to kind of show what is happening here. Now, while you have our heroes walking around this actual maze, they're then confronted by more creatures, but these creatures are way bigger, but also these are creatures who are really down for working for the animator. And so for our heroes, they have no choice but to fight against these creatures. But the problem is these creatures are very well trained and also very strong. And on top of that, you have some characters who really can't do much when it comes to fighting against creatures like this. And so, unfortunately, our heroes lose. And they also get captured by these creatures who are working for the animator. And he tells them, take them over to the next room. Now, once you have our heroes wake up and are being confronted by the animator, this is also where we kind of see his real hatred towards these animals, or half human, half animal hybrids that he had created. Because as soon as you have the New Mutants mentioned, they gave Bird Boy a name, he gets very upset by saying, you are an animal. You are not a man. You do not deserve the right to have friends. You do not deserve the right to have a name. I don't know why you think you should, but you shouldn't. And it kind of shows that same hatred goes over towards our heroes because they are mutants as well. Because to him, they're not humans. They're not man. They're mutants. They're just like animals. And so to him, they're also people or creatures that do not deserve a name, do not deserve the right to be called human, do not deserve the right to live like a man or a woman. And that kind of shows what kind of character he is. Now, the opening pages of the second chapter gives us a tad bit more information about this character. We kind of find out that he is scared of Cameron Hodge. Now, Cameron is the leader of the Right, the same group that hired this man to work on a project to make sure that the mutant race is not able to survive, not able to grow. Matter of fact, find a way to stop the idea of more mutants being brought into this world, but to also make sure that humans are able to survive and still be the bigger race, the first class race. But either way, we kind of find out he's not working on that assignment. He took the money of the Right, he took the money of Cameron and began to work on his own experiments. And that is a huge problem because Dani Moonstar, one of the New Mutants, she has the ability to connect her mind to someone else's mind, to pull out your worst fears and project that worst fear as an image for everybody to see. And so she pulled out the worst fear of the animator and realized he's scared of Cameron Hodge finding out that he is not doing what he was assigned to do. Now, there is one character I do want to focus on, and that would be Rain Sinclair, better known as Wolfbane. And the reason why, because when it comes to Wolfbane, she was raised 14 years by her father in a very serious Catholic household. Now, before her powers had manifested, he was already harsh on her. But once her powers came out and she was able to turn into a werewolf, he looked at her as some kind of work done by the devil, sent by the devil, and he began to hate his daughter even more, and basically calling her a body full of evil, even though she is a great person. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up because Doug, aka Cypher, who has the ability to communicate with almost anybody or anything in the universe, he began to talk to the other creatures that were created by the animator. Now, those creatures began to talk very rudely about Wolfbane, and so you have Doug try to protect her, but he gets smacked right in the face. And then you have Wolfbane get upset and turn to her wolf form and try to attack those creatures. Except she stopped very quickly. But once she stopped, she begins to think that maybe she truly is evil, that maybe she's only an animal, because all animals have some kind of lust inside of them. And so because she reacted the way she did when Doug got hit, she now is beginning to believe that maybe she is just an animal, but an evil animal like her father had called her many years ago. Getting back over to the school of Charles Xavier, we do pick up with Magneto. And you have Magneto, getting very concerned about his students, wondering where in the world are they? And so he leaves to go over to the Hellfire Club, because around this time he had joined the club as the White King as a way to help get funding to protect the school from different kind of enemies like the Marauders. And so he's the White King over there, and he feels like with the idea of being part of the actual group, he should be able to use their tech to find his students. And so he leaves. But you do have Sunspot and Warlock finding the clues that were left behind by the rest of the team and realize where the team is actually at. And so they head over there. Now, we do jump over to the animator in the island once again. And when we do, we really focus more on the animator here because we do learn what is his actual end goal. We kind of find out that yes, he was hired by the Right and also Cameron Hodge to find a way to hurt the mutant race, to make sure they are not able to outgrow the human race, to make sure that no more mutants are being brought into this world. Except he took the Right's money and began to do his own kind of experiments, these human hybrid creatures. But his end goal is to sell these creatures off to different countries around the world, because he realized that when it comes to humans, we are able to accomplish a lot of great things, but there are still some things out there that we are not able to accomplish because of different kinds of reasons. But that is where his creation comes in, these hybrids. Yes, they are animals, but they think like humans. And so they're able to use their animal abilities to help regular humans accomplish more great things across the world. And so his goal is to take his creation and begin to sell it to different countries around the world. Now, anytime Cameron calls up, you have the animator tell Cameron a huge fat lie about what he is truly working on. And his last phone call, it has Cameron realize that the animator is doing something, has something up his sleeve. And so you have Cameron tell his plane to go ahead and head over to the island because he wants to make sure that his investment is going in the right way. Now, right after the call had ended, some time does pass by, and you do have the New Mutants being able to break free. Now, you would think, okay, this is their chance to finally take down the animator, free all these creatures, and then finally go back home. Except, right when it seems like they are about to win, Cameron Hodge and the Right appear. And he's able to tell his soldiers to take out the New Mutants, which they do, very easily. And then he is able to realize that all his money was going to waste when it came to hiring the animator to accomplish his certain goals. Now, this leads us into what I said at the very beginning of our video, that somebody is going to die. So when it came to Cameron Hodge, he does take our heroes as hostages and begin the process of putting those characters onto his plane and about to take them back over to his new base somewhere in the world. Except Bird Boy and other creatures who work alongside with Bird Boy begin the process of helping to free the New Mutants from Cameron Hodge containers. And so now our heroes are able to fight against him and his soldiers and hopefully be able to defeat them to finally be free. But like I said, this is where you have somebody going to die. See, when it came to Wolfbane, she almost got shot by the animator, who also broke free from being a hostage from the right. And he had a gun in his hand. And his main goal was to shoot Wolfbane, because he looked at Wolfbane as an animal, not as a human. But on top of that, because she also is a mutant. And so right when he pulls the trigger and it looks like Wolfbane is about to die, well, you have Cypher jump in front of the bullet, taking the bullet, and of course begin to bleed out. And so then you have our heroes continue to fight against the right and now realize that one of their own has been shot. Now, when it comes to Cameron, he realized that he is losing this battle, and he's already upset because back in X Factor Comics, New York was attacked by Apocalypse, and his base out there was also attacked by Apocalypse. Not really attacked by Apocalypse, his aircraft just crashed into the actual building. But either way, he's still very upset about losing his base, but now this project is also a failure. But he does try to leave the island, except one of the sea creatures, that is half creature, half human, grabs the plane and bring it right down into the ocean, and it blows up. And so we're left to believe that Cameron Hodge is dead. If that's the case, the right no longer has their leader. Now, once our heroes realize the day is over and they can finally relax, well, they look over and they see that Doug has been shot. And by the time they get to him, Doug is dead. Now, as we dive into the final chapter for today's video, I really want to focus on Magic here for a brief moment. See, when it comes to Magic, she had a huge connection to Limbo because there was a period of time of her life where she was raised in Limbo. Now, thanks to different storylines over time in X-Men comics, we had learned that she had a darker side to herself, better known as the Dark Child. Now, the Dark Child form is kind of like this demonic form that she was given to her thanks to her having connection to Limbo. Now, the thing is, she was kind of able to lock away that form, but her fear is that she might turn into that darker version of herself. And so when it comes to Doug's death, she begins to go crazy and begins to attack different members of the right that was still on the island after the battle was completely over. And so when it comes to Magic, she takes that member over into Limbo to have him be tortured by her demons. But then when she comes back to Earth, she still looks like her Dark Child form. Now, she does turn back to normal, but it kind of shows that Doug's death is bringing out the worst in the rest of his team. Now, when our heroes arrive back home, they wonder, where is Magneto? Now, when it comes to Magneto, he went over to the Hellfire Club to use their resources to hopefully find the New Mutants. Except when he arrived there, well, he finds the place has been almost completely wrecked. And the reason why? Because what happened between Apocalypse and X Factor. And matter of fact, you have the other members of the Hellfire Club show Magneto the footage of the fight. And that is when he realized that he knows some of the members of X Factor. Now, let's not forget, because when it came to X Factor, they were a team that was going around pretending to be a group of humans who were going out of their way to hunt down mutants to help out the human race. But in reality, they were trying to help those mutants and try to train them so that they're able to control their powers. When it comes to Magneto, he only knows the first part, the idea that they're human hunters. And so he's wondering why these old people that he used to fight against, like Cyclops, Jean Grey, Iceman, and the list goes on, are helping out X-Factor. But he's also seeing what's happening with the X-Men. And let's not forget, at the end of the X-Men Fall of the Mutant chapters, well, the world believes that X-Men had died when it came to fighting against the adversary, but in reality, they had survived. But when we jump over to the New Mutants back at home at the X-Mansion, you're still having these characters dealing with the death of Doug, which honestly makes sense because Doug only died recently, but they're now beginning to blame themselves in different kinds of ways, wondering if they did things differently, would Doug be here at the moment instead of being dead? Now, when it comes to our heroes, they're also beginning to realize that they're going to need each other if they're going to overcome the death of Doug, because this is just too much to handle on their own. They need to support each other to get over this. And honestly, it's going to be a while until they are able to actually handle something like this. Now, this leads into a big moment for Magneto, because when it came to Magneto, when he found out the New Mutants were back at home, he was very happy, except when he walked in and realized that one of the members of the New Mutant, Cypher, is now dead, he goes into complete rage mode, getting very upset about what happened to Doug. Because when it comes to Magneto, even though he had turned into a good guy and trying to become a great headmaster at Charles Xavier School, he still has some hard feelings towards the human race. And so to find out a human had shot and killed off Doug, it really ticked him off a lot. But at the same time, he's still angry at the New Mutants because the New Mutants were supposed to stay at home, study for their midterms, except they went out of their way to help out this one group of creatures to give them freedom, and now one of their own is dead. And so Magneto is at the point of saying, you guys are not allowed to leave, because every single time I tell you guys to stay here, do not get into any kind of trouble, you leave and get yourselves in some kind of trouble. And guess what happened? Someone died this time, and now I have to call his parents, inform his parents that their son is now dead. How I failed as a teacher, how I failed as his protector. And Magneto is just ripping them a new one because he is just so angry. But then Magic gets angry as well. The reason why she gets angry because let's not forget, a while back when she was having a hard time dealing with the idea that she may have a darker side to herself, the Dark Child, well, Magneto was there to kind of help her work through those problems and bring her back over to the good side. And so she looked at Magneto as her shining knight armor to now see him as this angry man who is punishing her for something she did wrong, even though it was their fault that their team member had died. But because they're still so angry because of what happened to Doug, and now you have Magneto just adding on his anger, she snaps and she begins to try to attack him. Now, luckily, she does calm down, but in the middle of that attack, you begin to see her Dark Child form coming out very slowly. And then you have her disappear to go hide in the attic. But that really shows that right now Magneto no longer has that bond with his students. But on top of that, he lost one of his students. But to go ahead and wrap up today's video, when we do see the New Mutants in the attic of the X-Mansion, they do find some old clothes to kind of make some new costumes for themselves. But here's the thing, because you have the New Mutants like the rest of the world believing that the X-Men are currently dead, even though they are not. And so it's the New Mutants saying, we are not Magneto students. We were Charles Xavier students. But now with the X-Men gone, it's now time for us to step up and take their place and fight against other evil mutants across the world to help protect mutants, but to also protect the human race as well, to help achieve Xavier's goal. And so now the New Mutants are trying to become their own, big time superhero team. But the question is, will Magneto step in their way? And is the end for today's video. So with that being said, guys, please leave me a like down below and subscribe. Also, if you have any suggestions on books I should read, well, please let me know in the comments below, because you never know, your suggestion could be a future video down the road. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.